In this lesson, we're going to develop our typography basics and take a look at some of the special little formatting tricks that you can use to enhance text in your InDesign documents. So let's open up the Foodie magazine working draft document that you saved at the end of the last lesson. And open that up now if you want to follow along in InDesign. So go on, pause the video and I'll be waiting for you. Right, so let's get to it. So the first thing you need to know about typography in InDesign is that there are loads of unusual sounding words to describe different effects that you can apply to your text. At first, these terms might be a bit confusing, but the more that you use them, the more natural it will become to remember their names and their meanings. So let's return to the first page of our Foodie magazine document, which is going to be the front cover of our publication. So at the moment you've got a couple of text frames on the page which we created in the last lesson, and we look briefly at how to switch up the font and the weight of the text, as well as how you can adjust the font size. So what else can we do? Let's select the type tool from the tools panel and click into the text frame with the heading Love Your Kitchen. So highlight those first three words, Love Your Kitchen. Now, let's do what we did earlier and change the font and the font size. So head up to the character formatting controls panel that's appeared now at the top of the workspace and select Gill Sans under G from the drop-down menu. If you've used the font recently, InDesign will list it in a little section at the top of the menu, which is really useful, so you don't always need to be scrolling all the way down the list. Now let's increase the font size to 22 points. So it's looking better, but how can we make the Love Your Kitchen phrase look like more of a heading? So the first thing that we can do is to increase the space between the heading and the rest of the text. The space between lines of text is called leading, and you can find the option to adjust it in the character formatting controls panel, just below the font size option. Let's move the text frame into position on the page first. So switch to the selection tool, grab the frame and drag it to sit below the yellow rectangle at the bottom left of the page, just with the left side of the frame resting on the margin. Now let's just make the text a little bit longer. So type in heart of the, so it now reads fittings for the heart of the home. And you can also hover over the right side of the frame until a little two-headed arrow symbol appears, and this means that you can adjust the width of the text frame. So you can click and hold and drag the frame to the left if you need to until you have for the heart of the home sitting on the third line of the text frame. Okay, so we're in position, so let's get back to formatting the heading of our text frame. First thing to know about leading is that the space between the lines is increased upwards, so whichever line you select, the leading increases above that line. That's if you select just a single line to format, so let's try that now. Highlight just these words, new equipment and fittings, and manually increase the leading of just that line to 26 points. And you can see how it is subtly spaced that line out. So hit W to switch to preview mode to just get a better view of it, and then hit W again to go back into the normal mode. If you want to adjust the leading of a whole paragraph, you should place your cursor somewhere in the paragraph or highlight the whole paragraph. To adjust the leading of all the text in a text frame, select the text frame with the selection tool, then switch to the type tool to bring up the character formatting controls panel, and you can adjust the leading of the whole frame from there. So let's just edit, undo that, and just keep that slightly increased leading on the second line of the text. Another thing that you can do to your text to make headings and titles stand out is to set them in all caps. And you don't need to manually type the text in uppercase yourself. InDesign has an option available to you in both the character and paragraph formatting controls panels to let you instantly change the text to uppercase. Let's take a look at the Foodie text frame that we have at the top of the page. Let's highlight that whole word using the type tool. Up in the character formatting controls panel, you can see a little double T icon just to the right of the font size text box. Click the icon to set the text in all caps, and to remove it, just click the icon again. Click again to press the button down and apply the effect. It's looking really nice. So let's do the same for the Love Your Kitchen heading. It's just a really good tip for doing headings is to set them in all caps. Highlight the text and click the TT all caps icon in the controls panel. And let's make the text stand out even more and adjust the font weight to semi-bold from the drop-down menu at the left of the panel. Okay, so now our foodie magazine title is looking a little bit too compact and squashed into the left corner of the page. So how can we give the text more impact and make it appear more legible without having to increase the font size? Well, this is where tracking comes into play. So I know what you're thinking, not another term that I have to remember, and you would be right. But tracking simply refers to the spacing between a group of letters or characters. You can find tracking up here in the character formatting controls panel, just along from the all caps button. It's symbolised by 2 letters, AV, and a double-ended arrow. So hover over the icon and you'll see that InDesign reminds you that this is for increasing or decreasing tracking. By default, when you create any new text, the tracking will be set to 0, but you can pick from a range of options for the spacing of your letters. So you can reduce the space by picking from the negative values, which gives the text a more compressed appearance, or you can choose to increase the spacing. 200 might be a bit much for our purposes here, so let's manually type in 90 into the text box to spread the foodie title across the width between the margins on the page. Another term you may have heard of before and is related but a little bit different to tracking is kerning, and this refers to the space between just 2 individual letters or characters. So if we wanted to increase the space between the F and O of foodie, for example, we could set our type cursor between the 2 letters, head back up to the character formatting controls panel and find the kerning option just above the tracking option. Click the arrow to the right of the text box to increase the space between the 2 letters by 10 units at a time. After you've experimented, delete the kerning and return it back to 0. The other thing we can alter is the alignment of text on your document. The best way to edit this is to click the paragraph symbol to the left of the controls panel to open up the paragraph formatting controls panel. From here we can see a number of different options for aligning our text. So we've got the usual suspects along the top row, align the text to the left or to the right, and also flushing its centre. Below that we've got options to justify the text in different ways, which means that the text is pulled across the whole of the text frame to create more of a very straight block of text. We can try the justify all lines option with the Love Your Kitchen text frame to give you an idea of how it would look. So justifying text often looks better with larger sections of body text, so let's keep that bit of text set to align left for now. We can make sure that the foodie title is centered in its frame by selecting Align Center from the top row. And we also have these options that you can use when you're creating a document with facing pages, which is to align the text either towards or away from the spine. So it's rare that you'd want or need to use them, they're a bit more unique, but it's good to be aware of the flexibility that InDesign gives you with formatting the alignment of your text. And another really cool typography feature in InDesign, which can really pull your designs together, is the option to apply a drop cap to your text. So let's try that with the paragraph beginning, New Equipment and Fittings, at the bottom of the page. So just click in the paragraph to set your type cursor into the frame. Now, still with the paragraph formatting controls panel up at the top of the workspace selected, look along from the alignment options and past the options for applying indents, and you'll see a little symbol with a letter A alongside some lines of text and a little vertical double-ended arrow. So hover over that and you'll see the caption drop cap number of lines appear next to your cursor. And this allows you to decide how many lines of text that you want your drop cap to extend down to. So if we click the up arrow and increase the value to 1, nothing happens to your text as the drop cap is only reaching across the height of 1 line. Increase it again to 2 and now the letter N is pulled out in a lovely drop cap. The next option along to the right also allows you to set how many characters you want included in the drop cap. So increase that to 2, then 3, and the whole word new is pulled out in larger text. Now, that's not to say that a drop cap will always suit your typography. In this case, it's drawing attention away from the Love Your Kitchen heading, so it might not be working as well. So let's set both the drop cap number of lines and drop cap one or more characters to 0. So that's great work. Your text is really starting to look pulled together and professional. So in this lesson, we've looked at how some special typography effects can transform and enhance your designs. Adjusting the space between lines of text, which is known as leading, can make your text more readable and help to separate sections of text from each other to create more visual breathing space. Increasing the space between a group of characters in your text can also be a good technique for improving legibility and filling space on the page without needing to increase the font size, and we call this tracking. You can also increase or decrease the space between two individual characters by adjusting the kerning of the text. We've also looked at how the alignment of paragraphs of text can be adjusted from the paragraph formatting controls panel. And finally, we touched upon drop caps and how they can add impact and authority to a paragraph. So fantastic work, guys. There are a lot of new terms to take in here. So you may want to replay this lecture if you still feel a bit in the dark about what these terms might mean. But don't worry too much. The more that you use InDesign, the more natural using these terms is going to become. So stick with me. In the next lesson, we're going to look at how you can apply colour to your typography and also talk about how we can adjust things like tints and opacities of your text, and also how we can add effects like drop shadows and gradients to switch up the look of your typography. So make sure that you save your Foodie magazine working draft file if you're following along in InDesign, because we'll be coming straight back to this in the next lecture. So great work so far, and I'll see you in a bit.